Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about a figure so influential they're literally baked into our modern language, and yet we're still not even sure if they were a real person. We're diving deep into the mystery of Hermes Trismegistus.
I mean, just the name itself, Hermes, the thrice greatest. That's a pretty bold claim, right? But who was he? A man? A god? Just a myth? For centuries, some of the world's greatest thinkers have been absolutely captivated by this collection of writings attributed to him, the Corpus Hermeticum, and all the while, the author remains a complete and total ghost. Okay, so the first thing we've got to do is try and pin down this phantom philosopher. But here's the thing. The search for Hermes Trismegistus isn't really about finding a single person. It's much bigger than that. It's about getting to grips with this incredibly powerful wave of ideas that came out of the ancient world. You know, historians basically land in three main camps. First, you've got the idea that Hermes was actually the Egyptian god of wisdom, Thoth, just kind of repackaged. Then there's the second theory, that Hermes wasn't a name, but more of an honorary title, passed down from one wise teacher to the next. And finally, the third camp argues he wasn't a person at all, just a symbolic figure, a face for an entire school of thought.
Trying to piece together the timeline is seriously like being a detective. You find one clue on the Rosetta Stone around 200 BC, then another one pops up from the Roman orator Cicero about 100 years later. And then, and this is a big one, around 200 AD, Clement of Alexandria actually sees a procession carrying 42 books of Hermes. When you put all these clues together, they all point to one thing. These ideas were bubbling up during a time of just massive cultural and religious chaos.
So to really get why Hermetism showed up when it did, we've got to go back in time. Back to the ancient world's very first globalized empire, Rome. See, when Rome rose to power, it wasn't just about redrawing maps. It completely upended how people saw the gods and their own place in the universe.
Just imagine for a second, you're living in one of these conquered lands. The Roman legions roll in, and suddenly, everything you believed in is shattered. Your local gods, the ones you prayed to for protection, they failed. So with all the old certainties just gone, this huge spiritual vacuum opens up, leaving people desperate for new answers.
And here's where it gets really fascinating. In a weird twist, Roman tolerance, or maybe indifference, created the world's first era of, well, religious shopping. For the very first time, you could walk through a big, bustling city like Alexandria and see a temple to an Egyptian god right next to a Greek one and a Persian one down the street. People could actually compare, contrast, and choose their beliefs. That was something totally new, completely unimaginable just a generation before.
So out of this giant spiritual marketplace, you get these new kind of hybrid beliefs popping up. Think of them like philosophies that could speak multiple religious languages at once, blending ideas from all over the empire. And we're not talking about small changes to old religions. No, these were radical, brand new systems. And Hermeticism? It was one of the most profound of them all.
All right, so what was the big idea behind Hermetic philosophy? What was at its core? Well, for starters, it wasn't just another religion, not at all. It was a whole cosmology, a completely new and radical way of looking at God, the universe, and yeah, our place in the whole thing.
The central concept, the big game changer in Hermeticism, is this redefinition of God. Forget the idea of a king on a throne somewhere. Instead, imagine God as a universal mind, a consciousness so huge, so all-encompassing that its very thoughts become reality. And get this, it's probably no coincidence that the name of the Egyptian god of wisdom, Thoth, is almost certainly where we get our modern word thought.
And this whole body of work, these 42 books, was meant to be huge. The number 42 itself was super important in Egypt. It was the number of provinces. So in a way, these books were meant to cover the whole territory of knowledge. It was basically their attempt at a theory of everything, trying to map out the laws of this divine mind and how they show up in medicine, law, astronomy, everything.
Okay, if you had to boil all of Hermeticism down to one sentence, this would be it. It's from the legendary Emerald Tablet. That which is above is like unto that which is below. This is the absolute heart of the whole philosophy. It's the principle of analogy. It means that the huge universe out there, the macrocosm, and you, the individual human, the microcosm, are basically reflections of each other. So if you can understand yourself, you can understand the entire cosmos, and vice versa. So what does this mean for us, for humanity? Well, it gives us this incredibly profound new job description. We're not just sitting on the sidelines watching the universe happen. Nope, we're the bridge that connects the spiritual world with the material world. We're like gardeners for the cosmos, with the job of helping to perfect nature.
And the ultimate goal? To be co-creators, to actually take an active part in the divine act of creation itself. That's a huge shift in thinking.
So an idea that big is bound to change over time, right? And that's exactly what happened. As this philosophy traveled through the centuries and across different cultures, it got adopted, adapted, and, yeah, sometimes completely misunderstood. Just think about the journey these ideas took. They started in North Africa, then they were saved from being lost and even expanded on by brilliant Arab scholars. And then finally, they made their way back into Europe during the Middle Ages. But when they arrived, they had a new spin, a very different focus. And it was one that would absolutely capture the imagination of the entire continent. And this is where the path really splits in two. On one hand, you had the mystical alchemists. For them, transmutation was a powerful metaphor for spiritual growth, turning the lead of your ignorant soul into the gold of enlightenment. But then you had the material alchemists. They took it completely literally. They were searching for the secret to turning actual physical lead into real gold.
And here's a really cool bit of trivia. This ancient philosophy literally left its fingerprints on our modern language. Have you ever heard the phrase hermetically sealed? Well, it comes from Hermes, since he was the patron of secrets and all those alchemical experiments needed perfectly sealed containers. Hermetically sealed just came to mean totally airtight. It's a little piece of ancient wisdom hiding in plain sight in the way we talk every day.
And that brings us to a final thought, one that really hits close to home. Think about it. The whole Hermetic tradition was born in a time that sounds kind of familiar, right? An era of information overload, where old beliefs were crumbling, and people were desperately looking for one single unifying idea to make sense of it all. So, in our world, with its endless stream of data and fragmented truths, maybe that ancient search for a universal wisdom is more relevant now than it's ever been.